Wow, I wish I spoke Ukrainian. Yeah, see, that's a bad sign that I only got a couple of laughs. Welcome. I really truly do wish I understood what they both said just now, because it might be useful to me. But anyway, I'm Jeremy Kerr. I am the chief architect of X.commerce, of which, as we all know, Magento is a very critical part. I'm going to spend a little bit of time kind of talking about the big picture, right? Talking about what X.commerce is, what our roadmap is, what our strategy is, and then how we're architecting the system. And then I'm going to actually show some real stuff working, some real PHP stuff working, not just on the Magento side, but also in the new platform that X.commerce is constructing, obviously with a great deal of help from the Magento team. Please, somebody put up their hand if I'm talking too fast. I generally do that, and that will not be a good thing today. Okay, so without further ado, I will leave time for questions. I expect that people will have some, so I'll make sure that there's enough time. So this is a message that I think came through pretty clearly in the video that we just saw. It's X.commerce has as its core mission the empowerment of developers to create a new world of commerce, to let commerce go places it's never been before. And there's lots of pieces to that puzzle. There are lots of elements that need to come together to make this vision possible. Magento is a key piece of that. The developer community at large is the most important piece. So one of the things that we're working very hard to do across the X.commerce family, and when I say the X.commerce family, I actually include all of eBay Inc., which is a huge organization, 25,000 employees now. We'll get to some of those specific pieces there in a few minutes, but across the family, we're bringing together lots of these elements to offer a collection of opportunities that have never existed anywhere before in the commerce world. So why are we doing this? This is kind of weird, right? eBay, folks think of eBay as eBay, right? It's the marketplace. Maybe you think of PayPal, right? That's kind of where eBay has got its center. Turns out, in fact, that eBay is a whole lot more than that. It is a collection of dozens of brands around the world that all bring some sort of element to the commerce ecosystem. What never existed in that ecosystem before was unity, was some uniform way that we could bring all of that richness of commerce to merchants and to developers. X.commerce has exactly that mission. Why now? Right? This isn't a new problem, but there are four fairly, I think by this point, obvious trends in the commerce world that are have achieved a confluence, are at a point in time where they are all sort of impossible to ignore. Rather than looking at this in the abstract, look at some of these very specific experiences, right? Marketing unfurls through social commerce. The deal boom. I don't know if this has yet kind of achieved the momentum in the Ukraine or in the rest of the world yet that it has in the U.S. But the Groupon phenomenon is a freight train, so to speak, in the U.S. Here's a good one, right? Go research a product online, and then go and buy it in a store. Progressively more common scenario. The inverse of that, you walk into a store, there we go. You walk into a store, you look at a product on the shelf, and then you buy it online while you're standing in the store. Very common, progressively more common. Standing in the store, looking at the product on the shelf, looking online to see if you can get it cheaper someplace else, right? Doing research in the moment. Taking mobile payments, right? There's a fierce war going on in mobile payments right now, of which PayPal, eBay Inc. is a huge part. The problem is that merchants can't deal with it, right? All of these technologies, all of these opportunities are generally inaccessible to merchants at large, right? And in fact, we're using funny examples here, right? Because these are the big guys, at least in the US, right? Circuit City, Borders, Blockbuster, all at various stages of failing, or maybe all failed at this point. And these are the big ones. These are the guys that actually have a lot of money. What about the small merchant that actually hasn't got the capability to build up a technology team even to begin to try to tackle these problems. X.commerce has, again, exactly that mission, to bring these opportunities, to bring these kinds of exciting sort of use cases and sort of new ways to think about commerce to everybody. But we don't have everything we need. If we could solve all these problems inside eBay Inc., we would just do it, right? We would just assemble all the pieces and we'd make a product and we'd sell it. Well, we don't have all the pieces. So part of the X.commerce story is opening a platform for you, for developers, to bring new ideas into the commerce ecosystem. We're not going to build integrations with every social site and with every potential deals player and with competing payments providers, but we're going to provide the opportunity for others to do that with our platform. And that is something, again, that has never been done in the commerce space before. There's lots of money in this. I won't dwell on it. $10 trillion globally in commerce by the end of 2013. That's a lot of money. Okay, good. We all buy that. But here's, to reiterate, here's the point, right? There's merchants are over there. They're, as you can tell from the icon, not very happy. They want to be able to take advantage of all these opportunities. We're over here, right? We've got great ideas, but there's a mountain between us, right? The money sits at the top, but how do we meet up there? Well, we have three problems. We have a problem of reach, right? Merchants can't get at what they need. We have a problem of integration. We've got a bunch of different pieces that don't all fit together. And we don't have a way for easily to allow merchants and developers to connect. Magento is an awesome example of how this has been demonstrated to be very possible and very successful. But in the broader commerce ecosystem, this is a huge gap. So X.commerce exists to do that, to bring a one-stop shop, a place where merchants can go to get everything that they need, to bring it together with an integration framework so that there is a well-understood way for merchants, whether they're small, running a small Magento instance on, in a sort of local environment, or they're a big guy, right? They've got a big IT shop, letting them all come together, and making it community or participant driven, knowing that we can't be the bottleneck to innovation. If we at eBay, even with all of our resources, tried to solve all these problems ourselves, we would certainly fail. And that's why a core piece of this is to open this to the world. And I'm going to actually show some working stuff there. So first of all, the one-shop-stop idea. We've got lots of pieces, right? We know about eBay, PayPal, Milo for local search. Unfortunately, we didn't actually put any of the many global participants here, many of the partners we have around the world, many of the brands that we have in other geographies. These are all very US-centric. But this would certainly go on for, a couple more feet of screen space here if I included all those. On top of those capabilities that we have, we're building a thing that we're calling the X.commerce fabric. This is the core of the platform, and we'll come back to talk about this in some detail. On top of that, we have products for merchants. We've got Magento. Rich, robust, has proven itself in the market, clearly the dominant solution for its market. We also, at the very high end of the market, GSI Commerce is also part of the eBay Inc. family. GSI Commerce has something like 170 of the top 500 online retailers on its platform, now also part of our family. And then at the very top, we have a set of products that actually face consumers. PayPal Access is part of X.commerce, and it is a solution for a unified commerce identity. In the video that we saw a few minutes ago, you saw the woman that was trying to buy a pair of shoes, I guess, and there's a pop-up with 30 fields she had to fill in to buy her shoes, and then when we showed her in the X.commerce world, there was just one OK button. That is what PayPal Access is about. I'll talk about that a little bit more. So this all sounds great, right? This is everything you need, wired together. Merchants can get at it. Consumers are happy, but it's still missing that piece that I talked about before, a place for developers to connect. And at every level of this, the expectation is that we will have openness enabled by the fabric to bring developers into the ecosystem, to connect developers with merchants. And that developer story is again, at the heart and soul of X.commerce. It's why I'm at X.commerce. To go over this just a little bit more, 97 million active worldwide eBay users, 100 million active users on PayPal. Milo is the leading local search provider. You know, we can all read this, right? GSI is, again, a leader. And this is the one I wanted to get to, Magento, right? 100,000 plus merchants, 5,000 daily downloads. These numbers are probably have increased since we put them up, you know, a month ago, right? The acceleration is phenomenal. All right, so now into the details. I want to talk about Magento for a second, specifically. So this has been a huge year, right, for all of us. This is the year that we formed X.commerce, the year that eBay and Magento became one, and the year that we headlined a huge conference called Innovate in October in San Francisco. It's where we unveiled X.commerce and where we began to tell the story of X.commerce to the world. And it was attended by almost 4,000 developers, merchants from around the world. So it was a very, very successful event. So a huge opportunity is unfolding. So why is this good for Magento, right? Folks think of eBay, and I know I talked to some of the Magento folks before, you know, the acquisition closed, and they said, well, eBay's a big company, you know, with this ominous kind of tone, right? Isn't that the end of, you know, happiness for, you know, for a successful, young, vibrant, energetic, driven company, you know, getting absorbed into a big behemoth like eBay? Well, that might be true of eBay, but we're different. X.commerce is an independent, mostly independent, autonomous entity within eBay Inc. And that gives us the ability to execute differently. We move faster, we take more risks, we act more like a startup. Our mission from the beginning it has been to be a startup. That makes us a very natural place for Magento to find a home. And we have to prove that, right? We have to demonstrate that to, you know, to Magento, to eBay Inc., and to, you know, to our customers. But that is the goal, and that hopefully will bring these benefits, right? So that Magento developers and merchants can take advantage of the resources of eBay. Everyone has new opportunities. We bring together more pieces, and that produces a network effect that exposes sort of not just kind of a linear combination of two things, but an exponential combination. The standards that I've started to talk about, the fabric in this open platform, which I'm going to spend a fair amount more time talking about, that, again, takes away barriers to innovation and lets developers focus on what's really interesting. And then finally, a collection of products that we'll be bringing to market from Magento, from the rest of the X.commerce platform, will provide new ways for developers to actually make money from the stuff that they build in this ecosystem. That's we have four primary measures by which our success will be evaluated at X.commerce. One is the total amount of commerce dollars, you know, currency that runs through the platform. The second is how much increase in revenue we bring to the rest of eBay Inc., to PayPal and to eBay primarily. How much direct revenue we produce, how much we sell of our products, and equal among those four is developer revenue. How much we actually enable developers to make in actual currency via our platform. So we cannot succeed without making that metric succeed. Okay, I want to talk for just a couple minutes about PayPal Access. I'll go through this very quickly because it's an exemplar of the kinds of applications that will come to market with X.commerce. It's the one that will bring the best consumer experience to be part of the platform, but we're actually undertaking it for a very specific reason. So commerce identity generally is weak, right? So identity today on the internet is pretty badly broken, right? You've got to log in, you know, 50 different ways to 50 different places. There have been attempts, you know, that I've been part of, in fact, in the past to build a unifying identity. None of these have actually succeeded, right? OpenID has struggled. There hasn't really been a general solution to this problem. And this actually is a barrier to many of the solutions that we all want to build as developers, right? Because if the customer that at the end of the day is the one that we're trying to attract into the product can't transact or can't actually interact with the product, there's going to be friction there. So we have to solve the identity problem. And there have been attempts at this, but they've been very weak, right? Generally, they're just authentication. You don't get a lot of additional information. They're not very granular. They're not very sort of specific in what they're permissioning. And identity is not really geared towards commerce, right? If you log in someplace with your Google ID, you don't trust Google, I would submit, the way you might trust, say, PayPal. Well, that's an interesting opportunity for us, and that's what, in fact, produces the PayPal Access brand. The recognition that we can leverage our nascent opportunity to use PayPal as a trusted brand in the marketplace and use it for identity. So what we're trying to do is build a system that has privacy protection, that controls the way your information flows to merchants, you as a consumer, and brings together a trust system so that we can merchants can learn how they can trust consumers, and consumers learn how they trust merchants. So this is a big, bold piece of the X.commerce story. And then this will let developers build extensible applications, have purchase history, other actual consumer information available to you, the developer, and we'll have a payment system, an integrated payment system that is fundamentally connected to this identity. So you can imagine a digital wallet, and yes, this is going straight after Google Wallet, but a wallet that travels with you around the internet. So this is one piece of the X.commerce strategy that deserved to get some attention. And again, that's called PayPal Access. All right, now to my favorite part. Dima's gonna like smile and nod because he knows that I love this stuff. The fabric. This is the core of the X.commerce platform. It brings together the pieces that we've been talking about. It lets Magento get at the richness of the rest of the ecosystem, and it lets developers bring new capabilities into the ecosystem, not just in the Magento world, but into the rest of X.commerce. So let's dig into it. Today, before the fabric existed, if a set of merchants wanted to get at a set of capabilities, let's say they were selling stuff on eBay, taking payments from PayPal, selling stuff on Amazon, doing shipping with a local shipping provider, maybe getting at some social commerce stuff. Those are capabilities. Each of the merchant systems would have to do a one-off integration. And maybe there are a whole bunch of them that are all built on Magento. Great. We can capture all those with a single Magento integration. But there's a bunch of others, right? Merchants all have a variety of different systems, right? Yeah, we want to make Magento cover most of those, but there are lots of others. That would mean that every one of those integrations had to be point-to-point. Point-to-point integrations like this are very expensive, of course, right? Of course, they're specifically expensive as the world evolves, right? As these things change, keeping up with the pace of change is very difficult. So the goal with the fabric is to build a reusable integration infrastructure that can mediate between merchant systems on one side and capabilities on the other. And in fact, it's not quite so black and white. It's really much more a symmetric model, but you can simplistically imagine that rather than having to do a one-to-one for everything you want to integrate, there's a single way to integrate. And of course, a lot of these things are going to come from the eBay family. A lot of these are going to be Magento, but there's going to be more on both sides than we can imagine today. So for merchants, of course, then we get new capabilities quickly, and developers can very quickly bring their ideas to market. We're doing this development in a way that eBay itself has never seen before. We're building on a cloud platform from day one. And that is, in my opinion, as an architect, the only way to build a system today, right? To build something that is elastically scalable from day one, rather than trying to figure out how to scale it later. And I've built plenty of systems where I thought about scalability came as an afterthought. Very hard to code scalability into a system that isn't inherently scalable. So we're trying to achieve, and when I say scalability, you can plug in other words there, right? Reliable, secure, maintainable, right? Those are all things that we're trying to foster up front. So there are a set of characteristics that we're sort of imbuing the platform with that allow it to live for a long time. First of all, robustness, secure and scalable, right? If we try to build a commerce system that doesn't have security as a top goal, it's not going to fly, right? We're not going to be successful. And again, I already sort of ranted about scalability. Evolvability is next, right? As we begin to bring more capabilities into our platform, we need to be flexible with respect to the needs of different kinds of consumers, different kinds of capabilities that might want to integrate. So allowing it to be modular and autonomous, where each individual piece of the system can evolve independently. And then finally, we're working very hard to have a consistent interface. This is what the Fabric's about, and to make it developer friendly. And we're not all the way there yet with developer friendly. It's something that we're really focused on improving, making it easier to use, but that is there as a top line goal. And I'll guarantee you that I would not be standing here, the next time one of these happens if we don't achieve this, because my job's on the line to get this right. And as I mentioned before, cloud ready. From day one, we're building it as a cloud platform. And I'm going to demo this actually working in a second. So before you get too bored with the slides, just to give you a preview. Okay. I use the word capability a lot, right? I kept saying capability, capability. What's capability? The idea here is that any technology or even a service that solves some specific business problem, that's a capability. Very broad definition, but it could be anything from selling something on eBay to having a catalog management system to having a unified deals platform. Those are all kinds of capabilities. And those are the sort of the units of currency of components in the ecosystem in X.commerce. So what does that actually break down into? There are actually three separate components to a so-called capability. One is this thing called a contract. The contract is the set of rules by which a capability is allowed to interact with the ecosystem. So if this is a specific example from payments, right? And what you see here is the definition of a line item in a cart, and then a definition of a cart. It's a set of line items, and it's got a set of attributes: tax, shipping, total, handling cost. This is one small piece of what it means to be a payment adapter. So if I come into the X.commerce world and I want to play the role of a payment adapter, hey, here I am. I can take payments. I want to plug into the Fabric, and I want to start being a payment provider. This is a piece of the set of rules that I have to adhere to play that role in the ecosystem. And that way, when someone comes along and says, hey, I need a payment provider, they'll know that I am able to meet their needs. And it's that set of standards that is at the heart of making X.commerce work. Then there's some user experience, right? Here you see the manifestation of payments in the Magento context. So this is the back end of Magento, how you would configure a payment adapter. And then there's the user experience, right? This is on the front end of Magento, when a consumer is actually transacting, how they choose payments. So those are three facets of that payment capability. The contract that governs the rules, or that provides the rules by which they interact, the back end that faces the merchant, and the front end that faces the consumer. And some capabilities might not have all three of those, but in general they will. Okay, so here's a very concrete example, right? And this is one that we demonstrated at the Innovate conference, and you can get all of the videos of all of the sessions from Innovate at X.com. There's a link to Innovate, and all the videos are there. So you can actually see a demo of this specific scenario. But what we did was we had Magento, demonstrated a Magento merchant selling items on eBay using one of our partner systems, one of their capabilities. They're called Kenshu, to do search engine marketing, to actually put their inventory up on search engines. And then finally, a system called Terapeak, another partner of ours, to do analytics. So as the merchant begins transacting, they're selling their items on eBay, they're using Kenshu to drive traffic to their storefront, and they're using Terapeak to analyze how each of those channels, their storefront and eBay, is actually performing for them. All without having to do any custom integration. So it's that kind of seamless set of interesting opportunities that is really compelling about X.commerce. Okay, so I started to talk a little bit about this openness, right? Open platform, community-driven, participant-driven. I talked about contracts, right? this is the core of that story. The fabric is the technology. The fabric is the infrastructure. It's the way that things talk to one another in X.commerce. But this thing that we have just started to call the open commerce language is that family of contracts that govern all of the opportunities, all of the potential ways that different capabilities can talk in the ecosystem. So that little piece I showed you of the payment contract before, that's one small piece of the overall open commerce language. And it will cover everything from marketing, email marketing, search engine marketing, to fulfillment, to order management, inventory management. Anything that you can imagine will be part of this open commerce language. But it's truly open. We don't own it. X.commerce will be its steward, be the shepherd of the open commerce language, but we're doing it as an open source project. That means that if you come up with another capability, another kind of thing, some social commerce or some, a awesome recommendation engine, and there isn't a contract that meets that, that need, you can contribute it to the open commerce language. So just like you would contribute source in general to an open source project, you can contribute the same way to the open commerce language. This is just showing that this is good. So to reinforce that point, we have a history, a sort of growing sort of momentum around open source at eBay Inc. So first of all, there are two key infrastructural pieces to X.commerce that are open source. Cloud Foundry. Have folks heard, anybody in the room heard of Cloud Foundry? Well, that's good. So you'll be excited when I show you the demo in a minute. And then OpenStack. These two pieces are both open source projects. One stewarded by VMware, the other one stewarded by Rackspace, that we're going to put together in a way that no one has ever done before to build a cloud platform for you, so that you can bring your capabilities into X.commerce without having to actually own the infrastructure. And we're doing that, again, in open source. And then we have a collection of open source projects that are within eBay itself. So these two are interesting. This is a JavaScript editor. This is a service-oriented architecture framework. And this guy was just open source this week, which is a new query language. This one is cool. Type ql.io into your browser, and you will be amazed. Then the punchline, of course, is that Magento, like open source is heart and soul here, right? It's very core to the platform. And then the open commerce language to tie it all together. Okay, the fabric. What is it? Right, I keep saying fabric and messages and stuff. So yeah, it's a message broker. That's the simplest way to look at it. It's a way to take chunks of data and pass them around between capabilities. But it's got four really important characteristics that make it, but putting them all together makes it different. First of all, yeah, it's message-based. It's topic-oriented, which means it follows a publish-subscribe paradigm. So I can say, hey, I'm a payment provider. Please subscribe me to all bid for payment messages. And another side could be, hey, I'm an order system. Please subscribe me for all new order messages. So that kind of language, publish, subscribe, topics. The topics are order message, inventory change. Those are the kinds of things that would be topics. It's asynchronous. And I know that there's a talk later in the day about integrating Magento with asynchronous systems. That's specifically talking to integration with the fabric. Is he in the room? No? Okay. Look at the agenda. There's a great talk. If I could read Ukrainian, I'd tell you when it was. Somebody else can tell me. When is it? Anyway, there's a great talk to talk about this specifically. And then this one is really important, tenant aware. What does that mean? So in the X.commerce world, we're going to have lots of different merchants transacting, right? They're all going to be interacting with different capabilities, and they all need to do that in a secure way, such that they don't, that one merchant can't see another merchant's data, that one payment provider doesn't get the payment from another, another payment provider. How do we achieve that? From day one, the fabric knows about merchants. every message that flows through the fabric is tagged with a merchant so that a message can't go someplace it's not supposed to be. So and that's done not by just by enforcement, but by cryptographic mechanism, so that every message that comes into the fabric is signed, cryptographically signed, such that it can only be delivered successfully, or it can be enforced that it's only delivered successfully to the places that it belongs. And that gives us the ability to have a lot of richness and in the way we route messages, and gives us a handle on security that would have been very difficult otherwise. Okay, how do you work with it? I argue it's actually very simple. There are a very small number of concepts that you need to understand to be able to talk to the fabric, and I'm actually going to demonstrate this in a second. Everything is using HTTP. So in and out of the fabric, it's all blobs of data over HTTP. The blobs are encoded in a language called Avro, which is just a way to serialize data. It gets a fair amount of attention because there's a library that you have to use. There's libraries for lots of different languages: PHP, Python, Java, Ruby. But it takes a little getting used to. I'll come back to that in a second. Message contracts, we talked about that already. Right? Those are the rules that govern what you're allowed to send and what you have to be able to receive. Right? That's the rules that govern the game. And then the idea of tenants that we already talked about. And then we have some tools that we're building to make all this stuff easier. Sync bridge. This one is pretty important, right? Because while this asynchronous in the platform gives a huge amount of leverage over scalability, right? Because everything that the fabric does is asynchronous. It never sort of stores state. It never persists connections, across messages, except in case of batching. That makes it very scalable, but there are some kinds of use cases where applications would be much easier to implement if they could have a synchronous interaction as opposed to an asynchronous one, right? Kind of a request response, right? I just need to get some data, or I just need to, cause an action to happen. I can't really, don't want to deal with the complexity of sending a message and then waiting and then getting a response back. So this sync bridge is something that we're building that will make that very easy for developers. And then the last one, this idea of a JSON proxy to make this Avro thing easier to use. If you have the appetite for it, it's powerful, but there are environments where it'd just be a lot easier to be able to write regular old JSON and have something else in the system translated into Avro. The trick there, though, of course, are these contracts. Avro enforces the contracts. So if you're not using Avro, you need this proxy to ensure that the contracts are being enforced. So those are some of the pieces that we need to put in place to make this whole platform easier to use. I threw this in here mostly gratuitously so that you saw some boxes and arrows and stuff like, yeah, there's actual sort of functioning systems here. This is the internal architecture of the fabric itself. What's of interest note here is RabbitMQ is a messaging system that actually is at the heart of the fabric. It's the physical infrastructure, or not the physical infrastructure, but the sort of the lowest layer of the message communication system that will let us focus on these higher layers of interaction, enforcing rules, doing the routing and authorization. So there's a number of layers here that we put together to make the fabric a functional thing. Okay, let me get to a demo. Let me hit this first. So some stuff that you can do. There's lots of interesting opportunities for developers with X.commerce, right? We're doing Magento integration, right? That's kind of an obvious thing, but there are other systems that could be integrated with the fabric to bring their sort of features and functions into this ecosystem. So that's an awesome opportunity. And then there's an endless collection of new ideas that you could implement into X.commerce. If you had an idea for something in the commerce space, X.commerce is the place it should be. It will have the greatest reach, and it will have the least cost of implementation. All right, you implement it once, and you get at all of the customers that we bring to X.commerce. And we're building all this, of course, in the cloud. So let me talk about the cloud just for a second, then I'm going to demo it. So Cloud Foundry is the core, and let me jump straight into the demo, so I'm probably running out of time. But the Cloud Foundry is the actual infrastructure that we're leveraging, but we're building a layer on top of Cloud Foundry to make it a commerce cloud. So let me talk about that for a second. So what I'm going to show you is a slimmed down version of the demo that I gave at the Innovate conference. So what you're looking at here is the management system for the Fabric. And what I'm going to show you is Magento connected to the Fabric. So we've built the integration between Magento and the Fabric such that you'll see inventory changes in Magento flowing through the Fabric, and then we'll build a PHP application that listens to those inventory updates and posts to a Facebook wall. So the idea there is that I'm a merchant, I'm a small merchant, I've got a Facebook page, I want to tell my followers on Facebook, my friends on Facebook, that I've got something interesting on my store, right? Plausible scenario, right? It's more than hello world. Yeah, okay, maybe you can't sell it as a product, but it's a real idea. So, like I said, here's Magento running, and I've already integrated a very simple new attribute into Magento. 3 minutes, okay, that's perfect actually. So you see this deal of the day. So new attribute in Magento, right? Just a special attribute. Anybody can create one. And then we've got the little sort of chunk of integration inside Magento that will take inventory updates and push them out to the Fabric. So I've got the Fabric running on this same machine. And if we go look over here, this is a contract. This is an actual contract, a very simple one, right? So I've trimmed down kind of the sort of the richness of what a contract could be to just talk about inventory updates, right? So what we want to do is when a merchant updates their inventory, right, ticks that thing that says deal of the day, send a message to the Fabric. We'll have a guy on the other end that gets the message and pushes it out to Facebook. So here we just have an item. It's got a SKU, a title, it's got a current price, its URL, and then this flag, is it a deal today? And then I've got an array of those items. So when something gets updated in inventory, we take an array of items, we push it out to the Fabric. Now, let's actually build something. I won't make you wait while I type in the code, but this is all of the code required in PHP to take the message off the Fabric and call it to Facebook. Right? All it does is get the guts of the HTTP request, decodes it. This Avro stuff, that's the PHP library for Avro. Very simple. All it does is decode it, and then iterates through the items. Right? The items are in the contract, or were defined by the contract. They come in the message. We pull the URL out of the message, and we pull the title out of the message, and then we build up an update to Facebook. All it's going to do is say, hey, the message is deal of the day, and there's a link. And then I'm going to call it to Facebook, update Facebook wall. How do we do the wiring, right? We've got Magento on one side, Fabric in the middle. We want to put something on this guy on the other side, right? How do we connect them together? I'm going to do that right now. So back to the console. I'm going to create a new capability. So that thing, this deal thing that's going to update Facebook, that's a capability, right? We talked about a capability solving a business problem. Okay, updating Facebook is a business problem. So let's call it Facebook deal. And it needs an endpoint, which we'll come back to in a second. And then we need to authorize it, right? We actually need to say, hey, I'm interested in inventory updates, right? We talked about publish, subscribe. Capabilities are interested in certain kinds of messages. So we'll say, you know what? I am interested in this thing that we'll call inventory updated. Right? So now inventory updates will come to our new capability. But we talked about tenants, right? This guy shouldn't get everybody's inventory update messages, just the ones from the merchants that that have opted in. So we'll fake that. We'll say, you know what? We'll let merchant 2 now be part of this capabilities world. So now every time an inventory updated message for merchant 2 gets sent to the Fabric, our new capability will get it. Now we need the actual application. So there's our code. now we'll see some magic of Cloud Foundry. So I've got Cloud Foundry, cloud system running locally on my box. So let's just say VMC push. Oops, no. Var library web server documents. All right, so here's our code that we just looked at. There it is, no smoke and mirrors. We'll say VMC push. VMC push. So what we're saying is I've got an application. I want to put it in the cloud. I've got a local cloud, right? But this, in our world, will be the X.commerce cloud, right? That means that you don't have to host infrastructure. You build your application. You push it to us, and we run it for you. It can listen to messages on the fabric. It can do whatever it needs to do. It has storage. It has the rest of the functions that you would need from an application, from an infrastructure. So we'll call this the Facebook deals. No, we'll call it... what are we going to call it? We've got to call it the right thing. This is smoke and mirrors. Yeah, dealer. Okay, dealer. So we give it a URL. It figured out that it's a PHP application, right? So it looked at the directory, saw a pattern of files. Hey, this is a PHP app. Give it some memory. Right now, we're not going to bind it into any services. Services will be things like storage, logging, messaging. Don't need that right now. So the application got bundled up and sent into the cloud. We look at it now, and there it is. There's my application running in the cloud. So now we go back to my configuration here. Now we need to tell the fabric, hey, this capability that we just created called Facebook Deal, where does it live? So we call it dealer.vcap. There we go. Give it the URL to the application. And now, if we go back to my Magento application and I switch this to yes, and I say save, so now Magento's talking to the fabric, took the inventory update, created a message that conformed to that contract with the items in it, sent the message to the fabric. The fabric said, hey, where does this message belong? Oh yeah, this Facebook deal thing, it cares about it, sends it there. We took it apart, we posted it into Facebook. Now we'll see if I actually managed to make that work. There's the Facebook page. And let's see if we're successful. Refresh. This is talking out through my phone, so it may not be all that fast. Well, what do you know, it worked. Okay, so there it is, right? Here's my deal of the day. If you recall on the Magento app, Magento's backend, it was called Awesome Product. There's the link. Click on the link. Again, and then back to the store. So I've now just driven new traffic to that merchant storefront with that little bit of code. So that, the question that you should ask is, well, why not just call the Facebook update from inside Magento, right? That's the question to ask. Well, there's a couple of really good reasons. First of all, I don't need to know now who else is out there besides that Facebook thing. I did one integration with Magento, and that's already done for you. You don't have to do that again. But even if you did have to do it, you only have to do it once. And then whoever else might pop up that the merchant might be interested in having them listen to inventory updates, you don't have to do more work. They're already there, right? So if there's another social site that comes along, great. You build one adapter for them, and then not only do they get to communicate with Magento, but also anybody else that's declaring inventory updates. So if the merchant then says, you know what, I got to bring an ERP system in, and it's going to also have some responsibility to declare updates to inventory. Those need to be heard as well. No more work. We just integrate that thing once, and the messages flow through the fabric. So it's that indirection, right, that gives us power. For this specific case, yeah, you know what? I should have taken those 6 lines of code and pasted them into Magento, and I'd be done. But there's a huge amount more opportunity that comes from this, this level of indirection that we get with the fabric. And you don't need to know what else is out there. The contracts tell you everything that you need to actually interact with X.commerce. So that's the story. And then the cloud piece of it is just kind of gravy. It's just extra goodness. And actually, just to prove that wasn't a fake, Oh yeah, actually it didn't put anything out to the console, did it? Yeah. Well, if this guy had printed anything out, it would have shown up in that log. But there you go. All right. So that gives you a feeling, I think, at a as much as we can in a short amount of time, what it's all about. So we talked about this stuff. This is the the cloud. What can it do? Well, we showed it running PHP, but it can also run a bunch of other kinds of applications and more all the time. Java and Ruby and Node and Python. And then it's got a set of services that we didn't use today. MongoDB, Redis, RabbitMQ. We will be integrating the Fabric itself as a service into Cloud Foundry so that it has a uniform sort of mode of access. And then this whole cloud comes together to really enable commerce applications. More gratuitous boxes and arrows, and I already showed you the demo. So again, just to reiterate, the value to merchants is reach, faster time to market, adaptability, flexibility. That's back to this, no single point of, no single integration or point-to-point integration model. And then I didn't even talk about data, right? But the Fabric, if you think about it, all of the interactions between merchants and capabilities flowing through the Fabric gives us a huge opportunity to do analytics. Again, in a secure way with respecting privacy, but it gives us a great opportunity there. And then building a trust model that, again, we have a lot to learn from Magento on how to think about application trust. And then developers, of course, we talked about reach and ease of use and monetization, and we didn't talk about data again, but providing access to data for merchants as well, for developers as well. So that's it. What can you do? Go to X.com/developers. There's a developer kit. There's documentation. You can download the Fabric. You can play with it. You can, obviously you already work with Magento, or you probably work with Magento. It's there. We're not done. We just started. This is a 6-month-old effort, but it is, again, not to sound trite, but it's the future of commerce, right? This is here to make things in a different way. All right, I am getting the hook in a very